Hey, good afternoon. It's Sunday. It finally has stopped raining. It's been raining here like nonstop for 2 days. Busy weekend. I'm working my balls off all week, and then on the weekend have so much to do I can't even keep up with it all. I'm doing the best I can do. Um, I got an email. Sometimes I get emails and I think that people will single out like one video. They'll see one video out of the overall context of the library of videos that pretty much just encapsulate, my methodology or my way of doing things, or because everything's out there by this time. Everything's there. Everything that I think matters is there. There's all kind of complicated tidbits of stuff that I could be like, wow, guess what I just discovered, and I could make videos on this craziness. But the shit that you need to know is there. It's the shit that I pay attention to myself, and I don't have any issues with making progress anytime I want, in any direction I want, when it comes to anything physical, conditioning wise, whatever have you. So I get an email from a fella and a brother who is asking about my protein intake, asking about do I eat a lot of eggs, and what other kind of proteins do I eat, and do I supplement? Do I take any supplements? And you guys know there's all kind of videos about supplements I take, because the supplements that I take, I think they're important. I've been doing this a long time, doing it successfully a long time, and I do and maintain a lot of things that other people on YouTube who have larger platforms than myself would say isn't possible. So either that makes me a liar, or it means that I know something that they don't know, or that I can do something that they can't do. Heaven forbid that another man can do something you can't do, right? It just happens to be, this is my bag. This is my shit. Not good at everything. You'll never see me make a video about carpentry, okay? Because it would be a fool's endeavor. Because I am not gifted in that direction at all. No matter what I read, what I try, what I see, what I try to attempt to replicate, no good. No good. I suck at it hugely. Anyway, being spied on. Who the fuck? Anyway. Maybe I'll introduce you to somebody. You want to see my little squirrel friend? First, I'm going to tell you this. For my own mental health, there's a lot of little things that make me smile. A lot of little oddball things. And I have a lot of these oddball things around here. Let me take this off this stand, take you with me, and I'll introduce you to a couple out here outside that I like. One of the things is, it's a little silhouette of a cat, believe it or not. Let me show it to you. It's down here. Don't ask me why. It's just something I see, I connect with, and it adds to my life somehow. Here's a little kitty cat. It's a silhouette. All right, not a big deal. But when I come out of the house and I see it, or when I pull up to the house rather, and I see it, especially at nighttime, my old eye, sometimes I think it's a cat, a real cat. A couple other things that I like. There's a little wooden cat sitting over here in the weeds and shit back here. It was here when we got here, so was the other cat, by the way, I believe. Here's one of my favorites. I put this here. Val got it for me because she knows how I am. Check this out. Ever seen a squirrel like this? I like that squirrel. And then all the bird feeders and things around here, I like all that. Just makes me happy. It just makes me happy. Anyway, so protein, what do I do protein-wise? Back to the topic at hand. What do I do protein-wise? Yes, I supplement protein. Yes, all protein is not created equal. If you think that all protein is the same, you're wrong. It's not. It's not assimilated the same. It's not digested the same. It's not the same. It's just like any food. A lot of foods are different. They're different foods. Protein, when you think about protein, you're looking at like the old days we looked at PER, protein efficiency ratio. Right? Today we look more toward, which it plays into, assimilation. But today we focus more on digestibility and assimilation. And clearance times, of course, can be manipulated. And that's why, all these myths about protein, like people try to be exact. And they'll say, well, you can only absorb X amount of grams of protein per sitting. Well, that's not true. You can't put what kind of protein? What if I'm eating a protein that's going to take an hour, 2 hours to digest, hour and a half to digest, and get into my system, then can I eat more of that than if I was eating something really fast like eggs, or if I were eating like whey isolate, or if I were eating like hydroslate, consuming hydroslate, which is very fast? You understand? So, like all the milk that I drink, that's like a trickle effect. That protein's like in a continuous IV throughout the day. It takes forever to digest. It's in your stomach a long, long time. And so right off the top, people that are worried about trying to get to the point where I can't consume more than X number of protein gram-wise with every meal. Right off the top, you're never going to be able to figure that out exactly right. Just because of clearance times, the time it takes for the protein to be digested, it varies depending on the source of the protein. And assimilation factors, PER, protein efficiency ratio. Some proteins are so much more, the body's so much more efficient at absorbing and processing, and assimilating certain proteins, so you may get 80% of that protein may get into the bloodstream. Other proteins, maybe only 50% of that protein gets into the bloodstream, okay? So then you're talking about your limitation factor. Well, how does assimilation play into that? If you take in a protein, if you're taking 50 grams, and you take in, all right, say you think you can only get 30 grams. Well, how much protein do you have to eat to get that 30 grams? 30 grams? No, because it's not a 1-for-1 ratio. There's some waste and loss just in the digestion and the assimilation of the protein. You understand? If you eat 30 grams, all 30 grams of whatever given protein are not going to get into the bloodstream where you need it to be. Not going to get to the muscle. Not going to get broken down and make its way into the muscle. So, and then you're talking about, like I said, we're talking about hydroslate, which is already denatured. Which, if you want to think about what that is, consider the protein as like an M&M, let's just say. So all denatured means is that the shell has been removed from the protein, or like a nut, right? If you were eating nuts and suppose you could eat the entire nut with the shell and everything, all right, the denatured protein would be a protein that's already been shelled. So that step in the process is bypassed and skipped already. It's already been accomplished right from the get before you even ingest that protein. So that's what denatured protein is, and that's what hydroslate is. So that's not a bad thing, that's a good thing. And if you're eating strategically, it can be extremely useful. If you're coming from behind, you get that in there quick. So something like that, and something that has a high assimilation factor, the ratios, the efficiency. Like if you can absorb much, much more of, say, a whey isolate or eggs than, say, beef or chicken, right? Then you still want to limit it at 30 grams per sitting, because the 30 grams of the chicken that you try to eat or 30 grams of beef, how much of that's getting into the bloodstream where it needs to be once it's all broken down and said and done, amino acids in your bloodstream, how much? Versus, the whey isolate or the egg even. Well, egg is supposed to be like 80-some% or 80% assimilable. Beef is nowhere near that. So, again, it depends on the source of the protein. So if you're going to set a number and say, oh, well, everybody knows you can only eat X amount of protein per grams of protein per sitting because you can't absorb all that. Well, you're not absorbing all that you're going to eat anyway, and it depends on the source of the protein, how much of it, is burned up in the process, lost in the process, lost in translation. So that's one thing about protein that's, people get hung up on, and it's just a fool's venture to even try to, so in that regard, as much as you really need to think about, in my opinion, as much as I think about is I have fast and efficient proteins, and I have slower proteins that are going to hang around a little bit longer and stick with me longer. So I like to have that nice base of, that's why I use milk, the Fairlife milk. I like to have that nice base throughout the day, that like constant IV trickle of protein, slow release protein throughout the day. And then it'll be spiked intermittently with these really fast, easily digested, highly assimilable proteins. And whey isolate, there's no solid food that can even equal whey isolate. Just even regular whey, there's no solid food that equals that. Then when people start to talk about supplements, you have people say, well, none of it's any good, or none of it's useful. And you have people that say, well, just regular isolate, whey concentrate, that's garbage. Well, if it really meets the label claim, whey concentrate is still more assimilable than any solid food source on planet Earth, more than egg, more than anything. So, you're just mincing points when you are talking about, if all you can afford is concentrate. Nothing wrong with that. That's a really highly superior, sophisticated form of protein for a bodybuilder, or for building muscle. If you're interested in a quick protein, a fast protein, right, and you want to get the majority of what you ingest to where you need it to be. Basically, these are the things that you need to understand. And then you can formulate some kind of strategy from there. So yeah, I do. I use sometimes hydroslate, but always isolate, at least. And yes, I eat eggs, and yes, I eat chicken, and yes, I do not eat red meat. I eat fish. I eat salmon. I eat various white fish. I eat tuna, steaks, and things. And of course dairy, and of course milk. But it's Fairlife. And if you haven't had Fairlife, then there's not much you can comment on about it because you don't know. Fairlife is super light. It's almost like water when you drink it. And it's so highly filtered and so clean, and it truly is lactose-free. Whereas other milks that claim lactose-free or bear the label lactose-free, they're not entirely free of lactose. They don't have to be. They only have to meet a minimum standard. There's a minimum amount. There can't be any more than a certain amount of lactose left over after their filtration processes. If it's X or less, then it's considered lactose-free. And yeah, it's just small amounts. So again, but the Fairlife tastes so much better. It's so much cleaner in every other regards. There's no recombinant growth hormone in it. There's no, bovine recombinant growth hormone in it. There's no lactose at all in it. There's no sugar when I drink the skim. I do also drink the 2% chocolate because it's delicious, but I mix it with the skim. So I drink 2% chocolate, which is 1.5 liter bottle a day, and one skim, which is 1.5 liter bottle a day, both. I mix them together. Now, if I were really, really concerned about getting really lean, I would just go with the skim, of course. What else do I get? Where else do I get protein? Oh, and vegetables, of course. Vegetables. I eat a lot of vegetables. Couscous, for instance, is a complete protein in and of itself. Beans and rice mixed together embodies a complete protein in and of itself. And then, of course, you don't have to have even ratios, servings or amounts of proteins within a meal, as long as all of the essential aminos are accounted for. It's still considered to be complete. If you, have your vegetable and you have maybe a meat, if you're still eating meat like chicken or something like that, or you just wash it down with a glass of Fairlife or what have you, you're going to be able to absorb and utilize all of that protein anyway. It's all going to get a chance to get a crack at, enabling you to build muscle. Now, another common misconception that people banter around is you don't need more than X amount of protein total per day to build muscle. Well, that is probably very true. You can build muscle with much less than some people think, but if you're really trying to build more muscle, kind of like the more you turn the protein up to a degree, actually it yields more muscle. So can you build muscle with a little bit of protein? Sure. Can you build more muscle with more protein? Yeah, probably. And then beyond the point, it isn't necessarily being ingested in larger amounts because you think you're going to build more muscle from it, although you can always hope, right? But you're trying to kind of stoke the fire. You're kind of trying to stoke the fire because protein itself is the most thermogenic of the macros. And when you turn, and now there's a lot of talk on YouTube about this, like these guys are just figuring it out, or it's some kind of new thing. Todd Sweeney, man, was the man in this locale, in this part of the country. Todd Sweeney was the guy 15 years ago that knew about all this shit. He was the guy that wrote these diets, and he doesn't get the proper credit that he deserves. I mean, later in life, he went off the reservation a little bit, so to speak, but earlier on, he was the guy, man, with these diets, and those are the diets that he was writing for guys, and the guys were getting pro cards, and girls were getting pro cards, and people were, he doesn't get the credit he deserves. But you turn that protein up, and I like to look at it like you kind of sort of, your metabolism seems to fold in upon itself. Literally, you get leaner as you continue to get bigger, or you can, ideally. It's possible. You can actually gain muscle as you're getting leaner by cranking the protein up. And this is stuff I've been saying ever since I've been on YouTube. I've been saying it for longer than that. I've been doing it for longer than that. So it is what it is. So that's all I got to say, I guess, about protein. And I've already covered all of this stuff. There are videos I have which cover individual pieces of what I'm telling you here and now to a much larger degree and are much more greatly detailed, but I just don't think it requires all that. I'm just telling you the basic, simple shit that you probably need to know. You need to eat, you need to lift. If you're getting too fat, you need to look at your diet. You need to fix your diet. You can always turn protein up and cut down on some fats or carbs. Or some people can turn the fats up and cut back on the carbs, or some people can keep the carbs high, run carbs high, and run protein higher, and bring the fat down low. People react differently. People's bodies do different things, particularly women. I know over the years, women I've known who competed at a high level, who held a good deal of muscle. Some girls ran more carbs than fats. Some girls ran more fats than carbs. Some were very carb sensitive. Some were very fat sensitive. So once you figure this kind of shit out, then you can you have better control over, an orchestration over what your body's actually going to do, how it's going to react to any diet that you put together. So anyway, I think you just keep it simple, You can do some cardio. It's going to help your heart. It's going to keep you in shape. It's going to let you live longer. It's going to help with erectile dysfunction. Cardio does all these things. So cardio in and of itself, just for the sake of the cardio and the other things it does to contribute to your quality of life, longevity of your life, hopefully, make it worthwhile. But definitely to get lean, I'm a big believer in cardio. If I don't do any cardio, basically, no real dedicated cardio, so to speak, most of the year, then when I decide, make a commitment to get lean, I bring in the cardio. I bring in minimal amounts to get the ball rolling, and I kind of squeeze the most result I can out of that before I incrementally, elevate the cardio as time goes on. So it's progressive, just like everything. It's all progressive. It's not just progressive resistance that gets things done. Everything is progressive. You throw the body, something strange that it's not adapted to, the smallest amount possible to initiate adaptation. And then when you can't get any more benefit out of that, then you elevate that, or you progressively elevate that And so that, again, the body has to respond with an adaptation. It's really not difficult, and it's not really worth overthinking. Now, I know a lot of people, maybe they don't have a full life, so they want to focus on something and make the whole world about that, but that's, for me, that's not a healthy thing either. This is just one aspect of my life. It's just something that I do well. It's just one aspect. All right, let me get off here. I have so much to do, and I have some really serious videos I have to make this weekend too. And today's Sunday, so daylight's burning.